Brad Stutts, or lovingly known as Stuttsy, has joined us on the line. Man, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Kevin Ford is also on the line. So, Kevin, you two have met, I believe, at several Nova Pro
Yes,
shows.
my good friend and fellow Barry Darso enthusiast.
He's a great man.
Yes, he
One of the
is.
best.
Yes. Particularly now with us having a kind of a Southern wrestling podcast. I'm sure we'll be talking about him quite a few times. Um, but yeah, Stutz. So just wanted to kind of talk to you, about a ton of topics. CWF Mid Atlantic, obviously a ton of buzz going on with the worldwide. Trevor Lee's title reign, lots of topics to. But I think right off the bat, I think we should just talk about the connection to WWE. You have No Way Jose, who used to be part of CWF Mid Atlantic, and obviously the revival. I believe only did both of them compete for CWF or just the one?
Just Scott Dawson.
Yeah.
I actually, I actually had only met Dash a time or two. Just our paths had just never crossed. But I heard about him a lot, and he was all over the circuit. Just kind of our paths didn't really cross that much. But Dawson I knew very well.
How has that been for CWF? Like how is the with No Way Jose? I mean, just that he has that charisma that everyone talks about, and he's getting some better opponents than the WWE. So, you trace it back to CWF. How does that? How does I guess the character, quote unquote, compare?
Well, No Way Jose is really cool in the sense of they changed literally nothing but his name. So, he looks the same and sounds the same, and a lot of the mannerisms are similar. So that's really cool, as opposed to, sometimes if they and dress them up and the person that you see wind up on NXT is barely recognizable as whatever their persona on the indies was. So No Way Jose is really cool because they changed almost nothing. And Scott Dawson is not drastically dissimilar from Casey McKnight on the indies. And so that stuff like that is really, really cool. And of course, like you watch TNA, Trevor Lee is Trevor Lee. That to me has been one of the more interesting things to see unfold is, it wasn't terribly long ago when, they even changed Kenta's name, and now they're not changing anybody's name, and they're barely changing their presentation. So that makes everything a lot more recognizable, and that's I'm sure an to like someone like CWF, but it helps that he kind of looks the same and acts the same in our footage. It's been great. We got to be on WWE.com a couple of times and stuff like that. Whenever they do those little features and stuff, it's always good for we pick up new followers, we get new inquiries about training, and I can honestly say the training program here, the school that we have, has picked up since we had someone from a recent class go to WWE. I believe that there's probably a correlation there. So yeah, it's great, sort of for our street cred, you might say.
Yeah, I would think so. I think also a name that is out there would be Cedric Alexander as well. I mean, he has just become beloved because of the Cruiserweight Classic, and now featuring part of the Cruiserweight division there on Raw. And he had a ton of good matches. Obviously, through CWF Mid Atlantic, defending the PWA Ultra J title, and then as Kevin Ford was talking about with the Nova Pro show, with Chad Sterling having defeated him, but he also had good defenses in Nova Pro. I mean, Cedric Alexander, God, this was a guy just a few years ago. We were kind of wondering what he was going to do with his career, and now, undoubtedly, just one of the most popular guys out there.
Yeah, and I'm so beyond thrilled it happened to anybody better. I said it on his last night with us, which we were fortunate to actually have his absolute last match sort of in North Carolina and on the Indies. It was us. And then from there, he went to Chikara and Battle of Los Angeles. And then that was pretty much it. So we really got to have pretty much his last indie match when he did pass the Ultra J title to Chet Sterling. And I think is one of those guys that asks not what the show can do for him, but he asks what he can do for the show. And it's exceptionally rare to find someone like that. It's even more rare to find someone where the best performer is also the nicest guy, is also the easiest person to do business with. That's incredibly rare. And Cedric Alexander was all those things. So I'm completely thrilled for his success and genuinely believe that, like, it could not have happened to a better guy.
So, speaking of your champion, and Kevin, feel free to chime in anytime you want. But Trevor Lee, he obviously known from Impact Wrestling, though I don't know. We'll see how long Impact stays around. But, he has been your champion for over 230 days now and still counting. And from your last show, from Fallout, any thoughts on that? Because it seems like we are now building more and more to Andrew Everett, even though they are tag team partners in a lot of places. They're well known for training together, but also wrestling together. They've had a few matches here and there, particularly in the past, that everyone could check out on CWF Worldwide, or actually, well, on your CWF YouTube page from the past. But, you have Trevor Lee and Andrew Everett, which the two fantastic talents on their way up.
Yeah, I think there's always those guys who, for whatever reason, end up sort of married to each other. And I certainly think the two of them fit that mold. And we thought that years ago, but even we could not have predicted where that rivalry would go and place the chance to perform. So yeah, I feel like that's something that whether it's necessarily mapped out and planned as a destination or whether it just sort of happens, I feel like guys are always going to kind of gravitate towards each other or be put in situations to gravitate towards each other. They literally have kind of grown up together in the past, 10 years. So it's always a special thing when they get together, and I hope it always will be. I hope it will never get to that point where people feel like they've seen it. And I think those two are so creative and so artistic that it won't be. They will always have the trick up their sleeve to spice it up.
I think a guy you could probably also say this about is Eric Royal, who on this last CWF Worldwide got a title shot against Trevor Lee, and as noted during the match, he has the most wins. I think you could probably see all of them on your YouTube page for CWF Mid Atlantic. It's awesome to see his rise there and see him being used in other promotions as well. Is Eric Royal a guy that you think, it should be on the same radar? Because, truth be told, while I think he's a great wrestler, does not have the name recognition right now of a Trevor Lee or an Andrew Everett.
Yes. And I think the Eric Royal that we're seeing in CWF right now is very reflective of that mentality in a very real way. CWF is a neat place. There's a lot of creative freedom to the guys. In some ways, I'm very structured as an administrator, and in some ways, I'm very hands-off. And a lot of times, I have a lot of trust in my guys to, just get us where we need to go. And I think Eric turning up the intensity and finally getting to be more verbal on the microphone, be more real on the microphone, and really express how he feels inside. Whereas in the past, we kind of needed him as this knight in shining armor babyface. Now he's getting to really be the real person. And I think a part of that is he does feel somewhat for his friends, but somewhat resentful that he's not there. And I think very specifically, he feels sort of forgotten about by the people who, the people who make these calls, the people who book, the Battle of Los Angeles, or, the people that seek out Americans to do these, 2-week tours of England and things like that. I think he genuinely feels overlooked, and it is fueling this persona in a very real way, because like I said, he's getting to express what and how he really feels inside. So yeah, I absolutely think, Eric is from Los Angeles. He's from Moreno Valley, California. I'm sure to go to the Battle of Los Angeles and compete would be a bucket list dream of his. And he's had to sit and watch, 3, counting Cedric Alexander, of his, closest friends do it multiple times. And so, yeah, but it has fired him up and in a very real way made him better than he's ever been. So it's neat. I kind of think that's neat as, someone that's involved in the creative process. I always think it's neat when we can draw on how someone really feels about a topic and weave it into our narrative. And I think that's exactly what's unfolding with Eric. And yes, I absolutely think he's overlooked, underrated, and worthy of opportunity.
And I can, I'll throw on top of that. It's one of the things I said when running down a preview of Nova beforehand is, not only just because of his 6-0 record in Nova, but I think just with the body of work he's built in Nova Pro in just the 1 year, he's a real contender for, I think, what many people would say would be the ace of the promotion. I know he has the ace of the Mid Atlantic moniker, but I think not only have his matches been great, but he's really shown a diversity amongst all his different matches, whether it be technical wrestling with Tim Donster and Hot Sauce Tracy Williams, or throwing strikes and exchanging some dives with David Starr and Donovan Dijak. He's just a remarkable wrestler and athlete overall, and he has this charisma, and there's something to him. And I can completely understand professional jealousy in that, how that would cost him, especially in CWF, a place he would call home, to transform him. But I do kind of think, as some of these guys go to bigger and better places, your guys like your Eric Royals and Chet Sterlings, who you and I and anybody else who's paid attention to CWF for a while now know how great they are. Hopefully this means the spotlight opens up for them to take, and now the rest of the world can know how great they are too.
Yeah, that's definitely been the goal. The goal as of, let me do some quick math here. The goal as of, let's say, December 2014, as a nice round number, has been here, and I'll speak very candidly about it. The goal, the number one goal at CWF for the past, going on almost 3 years now, has been get the next crop of guys ready. And again, I'll speak very candidly, so that when, not if, but when Trevor and Drew and Cedric and who knows who else, when those guys are no longer at our disposal, we won't be ECW after all the cool guys left. And that was a moment that I lived through as a fan, watching some of those ECW TV in 1999 and going like, there towards the end when Taz and the Dudleys and, everybody was leaving, and it stuck with me as a fan. So now, fast forward however many years later, and I know in my heart that there will come a time that Trevor is exclusive to somebody else. There will come a time that Drew is exclusive to someone else. That time has already come for Cedric and for Manny, for that regard. No Way Jose. So there was a very conscious effort on our parts to sort of nurture the soil around Chet Sterling and Smith Garrett and Eric Royal and even a Nick Richards and several others for that matter to take good care of that. Like I said, take good care of that soil so that crop can grow. And yeah, I think we've been very successful. Again, speaking candidly, I think we've been very successful. And I think you can look at how many guys get a genuine, exuberant reaction, not just in our building, but anywhere. I think you can point to that as the track record. And that's been one of the truly gratifying things for me at Nova. Chet Sterling and Eric Royal in particular is watching and hearing their reaction grow from event to event, from month to month, where those people at Nova Pro are adopting, quote unquote, my guys as their guys. And that's very, very gratifying and kind of points to us doing something right, I think.
No, I agree. I saw a lot of people when Cedric Alexander appeared on Raw were saying, I just saw this guy in Nova Pro a month ago, and now he's here on Raw, almost identifying him as a Nova Pro guy, despite the fact that he was only on 3 of our shows and has a large body of work in CWF and Ring of Honor and elsewhere. And that was very flattering. And it's also flattering to see, if a card goes by where it happens to be someone like a Chet Sterling or a Tim Donst is unavailable, and you see the fans, they get a little disappointed that they're gone. And while you hate that they're disappointed, you almost are like, oh, okay, like these characters are catching on. These people are catching on. That it's the fact that they miss them means something's going right, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and I think Nova's got the same. Nova's can have the same, pool, I guess you'd say, of talent. Where I think one of the goals at Nova is to get Rayo at a certain level, to get somebody like Dan O'Hare at a certain level. Guys that have been sort of good soldiers for us and have put it in the end zone anytime we've asked of them. I think there should be, and I think there is, an underlying sort of theme to Nova to get those guys propped up, you might say, and supported as stars. None more than Logan LaRue. I mean, I think he's the guy who, more than anyone, is probably going to be, if not already, is going to become identified as the Nova Pro guy. And I think that's wonderful. I think he's fantastic. But yeah, I think that's a real thing at Nova Pro too, as far as just kind of, creating something that people latch on to and feel a part of, where, like you said, they think of this guy as a Nova Pro guy, or maybe they think of themselves as Nova Pro fans. I think that's one of the things that drew me to Nova, honestly. Even if you put aside my relationships with the people that run it and the fact that we're friends, I have plenty of friends that I don't work for. And I certainly have plenty of friends that I would not drive from Greensboro to DC for. But I got the impression at Nova that I was a part of something cool, and I was a part of something special, and that has just grown from month to month and show to show. It's a cool vibe up there. It really is. Anyone that's in driving distance needs to check it out. And I mean, we've had fans fly in, which is a big compliment. But yeah, it's a great vibe. It's a great communal kind of vibe.
Speaking of a communal vibe, so both promotions, you guys are part of the PWI Pro family, and there is just to be transparent about it, there's an obvious relationship between PWI Pro and PWP, the website. But I was always kind of wondering, and some fans have asked us this on Twitter. It's actually one of the questions we got when I asked people to send an email. They were kind of wondering, so they noticed there are promotions in Canada and even in the UK for PWI Pro. Are any of those talents, is there ever going to be some type of talent exchange with the promotions here, such as CWF Mid Atlantic or Nova Pro, with the international talents that could be brought in? Or is that just something more of a PWI situation? Like they would deal with that?
Boy, it'd be a cool thing to do WrestleMania weekend some year, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, it would, Stuttsy.
Will there be? I certainly hope so. There has been so much. There was a thing a couple of years ago where the Killbillies were supposed to go to England, and that, there's a lot of logistics to work out there, and when you're dealing with, again, I'll speak candidly, when you're dealing with sometimes organizations that operate on a budget, and that creates a lot of unique scenarios. That creates a lot of where either something can be talked about, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't make good financial sense, or you can talk about something, but at the end of the day, hey, this guy would love to go, and he was on board for it, but this other thing has come up that's closer to home where he can do this thing or this thing. And I'm not meaning to be vague, but those are the kind of issues that come up. Will there at some point be a true pro wrestling international convention and show, supercard, something? I certainly hope so, and I know others amongst us certainly hope so as well. It's a lot of logistics, and it's a lot of loops to kind of jump through, but there's been conversations, and I think one day one of those conversations, one of those pie in the sky dreams will pan out, and there'll be something cool that really plays into the international aspect.
Yeah, no, and I would venture to say, and Kevin, I'm sure you can back me up here, that the listeners to our podcasts and that read our website, they understand. I think your answer was more than adequate and understandable, because it comes down to money and if it makes sense. So,
right, and I think, and it's funny now. I have a better appreciation for. It's easy for someone on Twitter to throw to a company, you should bring in this guy or you should bring in this person. And it's just not always that easy.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And while maybe you would love to use that person, maybe that person, there's a million reasons that things can go wrong. I can say for certainty in the state of Virginia, it's a little trickier since people have to get licenses to work. And my understanding is you need an American Social Security number to work in Virginia. Now, Ring of Honor has had Japanese and Canadian talent years ago when they ran in Virginia, but Nova Pro is not Ring of Honor. So I don't know how that all works out. So I would just say don't hold your breath, but obviously it would be really awesome if somehow we could work that out.
Yeah, I think, also there's sort of, it takes a special kind of guy to be in wrestling to begin with. And then from that group, there's a smaller group that really chases this hard. There's a bigger group that is perfectly content just wrestling in their hometown, and maybe they manage a gym, or maybe they work at Taco Bell or whatever. But, it's tough to get them to wrestle out of town or even out of state. So there's a smaller group inside the group of wrestlers that would even be willing to, go to England for a week or go to Japan or go whatever. And quite frankly, wrestlers in that regard will sometimes talk the same way that how you're describing fans talk. They go, oh man, I would drop anything to get a tour of Japan. Well, and then that call comes, and then you have to figure out, okay, who's going to take care of my kid for this week, or who's going to do this, or how is this going to get paid, or whatever. There's a lot of logistics to work out, and it takes this kind of a sort of a special set of circumstances to have somebody who can just drop everything and go for a week or whatever.
And what's funny is I didn't even know about this until a few years ago when I was talking to Drew Cordero of Beyond Wrestling. But in that particular area, there was something that they used to call the New England mindset of wrestling, where I feel like, the three of us here, I can say with pretty certainly, we all have our pulse on the wrestling landscape in terms of companies and whatnot. But for them, there was a lot of wrestlers there where you wrestled till you worked for WWE, or you wrestled till you didn't work for WWE. And things like the Indies, Japan, Mexico, Canada, whatever else, just weren't their purview. They didn't care. That wasn't something that wasn't the road to success. You went through a Kowalski school or something along those lines, and then you hopefully make it to the WWE. So there's probably wrestlers out there too who feel like maybe they don't want to go to a certain place of this because they don't feel like it does anything for them, or that's not how they were trained, or et cetera, et cetera. And I thought it was kind of interesting that up until like even like 2008, that was a pretty prevalent mindset in that area until a lot of guys now are really breaking out. So you just don't know people's circumstances or mindsets or goals or what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that assessment.
Actually, that's interesting. Yes, because we did get 2 email questions, kind of asking the same thing, and it's along those lines, Kevin. Because they're asking, so the guys that they watch in CWF Mid Atlantic, and they don't mention where they live, but they say they watch them on Worldwide. So I'm assuming either on YouTube or on TV. But they were mentioning how they see them there, they see them in PWX, but that they don't see them going like spreading out, and they were wondering if this was a contractual situation. And yeah, so I mean, Brad, either of you, if you want to answer, I'm just going to throw this out there. Look, not every independent promotion has exclusive contracts. That's not to say that some are better than others. It's just how the independent scene has worked for years until what, Kevin, like 2009, 10, when DGUSA started doing exclusives. So.
Yes, absolutely not a contractual situation whatsoever. I would venture to say that even if I were to win the lottery and be able to do anything I want at CWF, I still would not bother with contractual exclusivity or anything like that. What a very real answer to that, though, is we have it pretty good at CWF, and it creates, I guess you'd call it a complacency, where guys can wrestle almost every week, usually about 3 times a month, 30, 40 miles from home, and they're over like gods in that building. Every fan in that building knows who they are and knows who what their stuff is and what their story is. And it can kind of create complacency.
If I may interject, I would not call that complacency. I would say that's actually a pretty awesome and special set of circumstance where a talent can go around a certain loop. And I mean, this is how it used to be. They would work a loop, and in each town they wouldn't stay longer than they should, but they were very well known. And the Mid-Atlantic has a huge tradition, or not huge, long tradition of having those types of guys. And, that isn't to say... like you were maybe mentioning, Eric Royal would like to go work in PWG and work for like Bola or something, but I think CWF has something very similar. You have a group of fans that understand the characters and even not even the characters, the wrestlers themselves, and appreciate it because you can hear it on the Worldwide TV series that these fans know these guys, and it is very much PWG-esque. Try in the sense of their fans that they always go to these shows, and these are the wrestlers they want to see. So I don't know if it's complacency, but for me, I think it's something special that maybe not every wrestler can get. You hear of guys in the Northeast trying to do that New Jersey, New York loop, and sometimes when they're asked to go down to Philly, they're like, even though Philly's a big wrestling town, they're just like, it's kind of far. I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is special, and I appreciate you saying that. But yeah, it breeds that mindset of I can always wrestle at the Sportatorium, so it might make someone less inclined to, get in a car for 6 hours and head up to Nova Pro and, be away from their wife and their family and take a day off work and then drive all night to get home and maybe go in at 6 a.m. at some job they don't like or whatever. When I say complacency, it's more of a professional complacency of maybe you don't chase it quite so hard and maybe you're not actively looking for bookings and things like that because that hometown promotion right here in my backyard, takes care of me and provides me with everything I need and makes me feel fulfilled. It is very special, and I certainly did not mean to demean it in any way, but I do think it can make some guys less hungry. I'll put it that way.
For sure. Oh,
I do think there's a myth in indie wrestling that everybody's trying to be the WWE World Champion. I just don't think that's true. I find that there's a lot of people who enjoy pro wrestling, who maybe they want to go wrestle CWF or they want to go wrestle their local company. They once a month, do that on a Friday night or Saturday night for fun, wrestle in front of their friends and family, and that scratches their itch. They don't have the desire to go any further. And I look at two people, somebody who wrestles for CWF, Brad Attitude, who had his stint in FCW, who went to those top indies like Evolve and DGUSA for a bit, and now he's at the point where he pretty much only wrestles in North Carolina. And so he kind of had his, what I was presume he feels was his run, his shot at the top. And while he still has a passion for professional wrestling, he doesn't want to maybe not travel the world anymore, and he's totally fine doing that. And Josh Prohibition, he used to be that guy who was wrestling 2 or 3 shows every single weekend for a few years in the early 2000s. And now he's a teacher, he has kids, he has a wife, and he only wrestles AIW once a month to help out that promotion and get what he wants. I think I personally don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if you get into wrestling and know exactly what you want, in a way, if everybody is trying to rush and become WWE champion, that just makes it harder for the guys who really, really do want that. And I think if those guys are staying out of the way of those who are the guys who are willing to drive X amount of hours for little to no pay, for little to no sleep, in the pursuit of that dream, I think it makes for a less crowded elevator. So those who do have the passion have even maybe a more quicker way to get to the top.
Yeah, and even to speak very candidly, in a lot of ways, we rely on those guys to stay alive because I have to be sharp enough to spot those tendencies in people's personalities and go, okay, this guy here we might lose at some point, but this guy is always going to be around. He enjoys it. He feels comfortable here. This might be his ceiling. I can build around and I can, really give the ball to and he can anchor a position for me because I feel like, barring something completely unexpected, he'll always be around. He'll always put it in the end zone for us. And, without that, then you become a situation where the turnover rate can get really high and really out of whack, such as, we've mentioned Ring of Honor a couple of times, even worse now with Roddy gone. But, you look at the Ring of Honor roster from 2004, 2005, 2006, look at it now, the turnaround rate has been tremendous. Whereas like CWF from 2008-ish, there's a lot of guys that are still here and that have been here all along and that have, put in 8, 9, 10 years here. And I am grateful to them for always sticking with us and always being around. Cause like I said, you can build around those guys and that's just their personality. Like you said, they get plenty of personal and professional satisfaction out of doing, just doing our shows or doing whatever's in the area.
What I'm hearing is that there's a real good chance that we will see Aaron Biggs and Mecha Mercenary versus Shane Taylor and Keith Lee, because Biggs and Mercenary will always be around. That's what I'm hearing. So,
Mecha and Aaron will fight anyone at any time if the sandwich is right.
That's literally the story that Kevin explained. That's awesome.
It's very clear the sandwiches in Nova Pro are right, and they are in fact
very much so. Very much so.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate the time. So the last email question we got before I ask you about the November shows here, and I appreciate you coming on to talk to us about this, Stuttsy. The last long-time reader of Peter P, and he was wondering about the TV. If writing for TV is different than writing per show in the past.
Ooh, that's a good question. Is writing for TV different than writing for shows in the past? To some extent, yeah. CWF has always survived on a business model that necessitated us running twice a month. Just the logistics and the numbers and once everything, was kind of accounted for, we needed to be able to produce 2 shows a month to pay our bills. So there's always been a linear sort of quality to it. There's always been a, things need to go from show to show, and very, very few things at CWF are ever a standalone, quote unquote spot show. Most everything, tries to have some role in a bigger story. If anything changed with the TV, it was, and with the TV going to YouTube in particular, which I felt was very, very important. I would have probably not signed on to do the show if, let's say, for instance, we were only going to be on CWF247.com and you had to go to the website, or if you had to log in or anything I probably would not have done the show. I was actually the one who said we have to be on YouTube. That's the only way I'm willing to do the show, because YouTube is so easy. It's so user-friendly. There's a PlayStation app. There's apps on your phone. You don't have to log into anything. You don't have to be a member of anywhere. You just click and you're watching it. You can watch it on the subway. You can watch it in the library. So YouTube was an incredible tool for us. I would not be producing a weekly television show if not for YouTube, because I felt like if we're going to do it, the way to do it is to get it accessible to as many eyeballs as possible. That's why it's free. That's why there's no login. There's no subscription. There's no, hey, $10 a month. There's nothing like that. I just want people to see our stuff and get to know our guys. And, maybe there's a guy in Michigan who runs shows who will see our stuff and go, man, I need to book Chet Sterling, and he'll get to go, and or fans that will buy a shirt or whatever. That was kind of the mindset. So if anything, the changes in writing for television came from realizing that there were things that we could do that would have appeal outside of our building. Whereas there's been things that we have, said, hey, this may not get the best reaction. This may not I shouldn't say best. This may not get a super strong reaction in the building, but, it will play very well on television. And guys online know these guys, and they have a following online that they'll share this with, and things of that nature. Shell, if the way we did television, the way we are doing television, broadens my horizons in as much as I think if we were just doing our every 2-week shows, I probably would not have the inclination to say yes. Car from Florida of guys who I might even put on the show sight unseen. Yeah, come on up. Why not? Screw it. We'll find something for you. Whereas before, I think I was a little more picky, and it's like, well, they're our fans don't know them, quote unquote. Now our fans are all over and know a lot of people, so it's broadened my horizons in a nutshell.
I was going to say, because I think you're also on, one or two channels locally, and if I may say, what I've noticed is also you guys are doing these, I don't know if you would consider them spot shows, but they are like, you do like a Rising Generation League show, or I've noticed like there are some results, but they were like for private parties or something like that, like someone asked to have a show, something like that. And I feel
we do all kinds of stuff.
I feel like that's increased since you guys, not only doing the worldwide on YouTube, but also on, I guess, local TV channels.
Yeah, absolutely. We, local television is again has another set of headaches. So it's been, sporadic. What we do best and what we are most happy with is the YouTube show, and it's been the most rewarding also. We have we have the luxury of having a building where the ring is set up all the time. There's no, and the wrestling school is housed there, and we have the luxury of pretty much being able to put a show together whenever. There was a week and a half ago on or I guess it's been almost 2 weeks ago now. there was a Saturday where kind of everybody was off. Just for whatever reason, there were no shows in the area. This was the Saturday after the Rumble, before the Greensboro show. So that'd be like the 7th or the 8th of October. And everybody was off, and there was no shows in the area. And there were literally fans contacting me at 11 o'clock in the morning, being like, hey, you guys should run an RGL show tonight. We would come if you did. And I'm not going to lie, we thought about it, which would be, how absurd does that sound for other people to literally run a show on like 7 or 8 hours notice? But, we have the facility. It's ours. We can do with it whatever we want. And so, yeah, we have a couple of services that we offer where we'll do pro wrestling themed birthday parties for people of all ages. And we have done some for adults, mostly for kids, but we've done a few for adults. And, or for whatever reason, for whatever reason, if someone wanted to, rent the venue and put on some type of event of their own, we offer, we have that service. Like our friends at Chikara have taken advantage of coming down and using our building. There's a couple of different services that we offer. If anyone, wanted to do, some kind of private fundraiser of some kind or something like that, we would do that. It's a luxury and it's a blessing to have, our own building where the ring is set up, where, like I said, the other night, we thought about it for a few minutes of, hey, could we really put a show together, even a student show? Could we really put a show together in the next 7 hours? And honestly, I think we could have. That is one of the things that's really neat and unique and special about CWF is the benefit of having our own building and our own crew. And truthfully, if we had decided to go, we could have put a Rising Generation League show on in 7 or 8 hours, on 7 or 8 hours notice, and had, a respectable, albeit small, group of people that would have come. And that's a real testament to the dedication of our audience, and hopefully a testament to the goodwill that we've built up with them, where they understand and they know that it will be worth their time to come. That's our greatest compliment, I think, is when people know that it will be worth it to come.
So see Lucha Underground, you can come to North Carolina and put on a show. Right there. Stuttsy just put that out there. So,
absolutely.
And hopefully your laws don't change like New Jersey or New York.
Anything that gets Melissa Santos in my building, I am 100% okay with. On board, sign me up.
There you go. But yeah, so before we get out of here, let's talk about Explosive Elements, November 5th at the Mid Atlantic Sportatorium in Gibsonville, North Carolina. Come on, Stuttsy, you can give us an exclusive here. Tell me a match. Come on. What's going on here?
Well, right now I'm thinking about Melissa Santos ring announcing in our building, and then that got me thinking about Trevor Lee versus Matanza Cueto, which is one of my personal dream matches. But Explosive Elements is going to be a good one. We actually we talked a little bit earlier about the rep and the goodwill with fans. It really is. The Mid Atlantic Sportatorium is becoming a destination, and I'm so super excited about that. I'm so happy that. Literally on what is, it's not, back anniversary show. It's not the CWF Rumble that we've been doing for, 16 years now. What is basically just a standard normal CWF event. We've already got fans that have bought their tickets from New York, from Florida, from all over. And that to me is just a tremendous compliment.
Are you going to give Nick Richards, though, his no rope exploding ring barbed wire fight, though? I mean, is that going to happen? I'm assuming not, but you never know.
I think not on that one. I think if there's a ball field or something like that within the sound of my voice that would like to take on the responsibility for that one, we can talk about it. But I don't think we urgently need to be blowing anything up in our ring, in our room, in our building. So I will probably pass on that. Nick has, one or two good ideas every year, and that wasn't one of them. But
like a broken clock is what you're saying. It's right twice a year.
Absolutely. But it's going to be a super, super fun night. Matches as they are put together will be announced on Twitter, on Facebook, and of course on CWF247.com. I do want to plug also that Wednesday night will be the premiere of this year's CWF Rumble match. It is the most fun hour of the year. It's the most exciting, chaotic, crazy undertaking we have every year, where genuinely 30 guys, it's every 90 seconds, and it's quite a lot of work goes into it, and it's one of the most rewarding nights of the year for all of us. So I'm super excited to premiere that on Wednesday night. As for exclusives on Explosive Elements,
You really don't have to. I'm just, I gotta try. I gotta try.
I don't know if there's anything to drop right now, because I definitely think viewers need to see how these next TVs that we shot in Greensboro play out, and how the CWF Rumble plays out. And I think that will give you a very good idea of where we're going for November 5th.
There you go. No, that makes sense. Yeah, so keep an eye on it. Wednesdays, youtube.com/CWF Mid Atlantic. Guys, I appreciate you both coming on here. If there's anything else you guys want to talk about, this is your chance. Otherwise, let's go to some plugs, as we always do. Stuttsy, I'll just start with you.
Yeah. Follow me on Twitter at Stuttsy, STUTTSY. Follow CWF Mid Atlantic at CWF Mid Atlantic. You can like us on Facebook. Please subscribe to youtube.com/CWF Mid Atlantic. I'm still looking to hit 5,000 on there. We're resting at about 46, almost 4,700, which I'm happy with, but I'm eager to cross that 5,000 threshold. So anybody within the sound of my voice, please subscribe to youtube.com/CWF Mid Atlantic if you haven't already. Personally, I will be at Nova Pro Wrestling this Saturday for Saturdays of Thunder, along with the Sandwich Squad, along with Chet Sterling, Eric Royal, a host of others from CWF and from all over. Next Saturday, October the 29th, I will be in Wilmington, North Carolina. If we have any listeners on the Carolina coast, North or South Carolina, huge event coming to Wilmington at the Swartz Center. Sting, Kurt Angle, Ron Simmons, Cowboy James Storm, and a host of others. Chet Sterling, Smith Garrett, Eric Royal, Mecha Mercenary, Eric Andrews, Lee Valiant, Snooty Fox, Dirty Daddy. Bunch of the CWF Mid Atlantic crew will be there. Super excited. And then Saturday, November 5th, back at the Mid Atlantic Sportatorium. It's going to be a very, very fun time of the year for us. This is always kind of where everything at CWF Mid Atlantic gets really exciting. We've got the Rumble in October, Ultimate Survivor, which is all elimination style tag matches on Saturday, November the 19th, and then Battlecade, our anniversary show coming up in December. This is always kind of the most exciting time of the year for us. I think this year is going to be even above and beyond standards that we've set in the past. So keep up with us. Follow us on Twitter. Visit CWF247.com for tickets and info. And yeah, holler at me on Twitter. I'm on there all the time. Say hello. We'll discuss our favorite recipes and our favorite 80s squash matches. And our favorite Survivor Series teams. Don't forget that.
There you go. Kevin, where can people follow you and Nova Pro on social media?
Yeah, you can follow Nova Pro at VA Wrestling. I ran down the entire card for you beforehand. Come to Springfield, Virginia this Saturday. Really, I mean, the wrestling show is a big selling point, but you really want to come to Greavy's Restaurant and Sports Bar afterwards. That's where the real fun's going to be, where myself, Stuttsy, and a bunch of wrestling Twitter are going to be eating chicken wings and drinking some beers. So that's going to be a really great time. Yes, buckets o' wings, many buckets. So if that's not a selling point, I don't know what is. So ran all that down. Then you can just follow me on Twitter at KFord13, and I'll talk about Survivor Series teams and all that. The 4x4s, they're pretty cool.
They're no Hogan. All right.
I think Demolition and Mr. Perfect is a low-key great Survivor Series team.
That's a high key great Survivor Series game. Fantastic.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
Go ahead.
I'll say I won't lie too much about the quality of that match, but I love 1990 Survivor Series just because it's so many Survivor Series matches, if not all Survivor Series matches.
The first three are the ones that I really kind of hold up as my holy grail: 87, 88, and 89.
For sure.
90. I like 90, but if I'm just working at my house or whatever and just put something on at the background, it's either one of the first three Survivor Series or it's one of the 80s Saturday Night's main events. That's what goes on in the background of many me banging out a CWF show at my keyboard. Those events have happened in the background of many of those brainstorming sessions. I think it was Cody used to say, Dusty Rhodes used to call it geniusing. Leave me alone, boy, I'm geniusing.
Speaking of Dusty Rhodes, I was going to say, as somebody who lives in the area where Jim Crockett and Dusty and all of them ran, the fact that you have WWF stuff on in the background while you do all this stuff is surprising.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, honestly, because when I grew up, my favorites were first when I was a young child were ECW and Mid South and Florida, were World Class and Mid South and Florida. And then when I was a teenager, my favorite stuff was ECW, by far, and Smoky Mountain. But yeah, somewhere along the way, I just became where my go-to was like 80s WWF, like Superstars and Challenge and Saturday Night's main events just kind of became my go-to somewhere. I think maybe because I really like the format of an hour show, but man, they did a lot with those hours. They would have squash matches and live event plugs, and when that became a thing, they would have the control center for the pay-per-views, and they would have vignettes for new characters, and it was a lot of short, easy to digest segments that all looked good, and they were all produced slickly. Somewhere along the way, I just kind of fell in love with 80s WWF as my go-to.
If only there was another indie promotion that adopted the hour-long show format for today. I think that would be really successful.
Wouldn't it be, though? Wouldn't that be nice?
I think that'd be pretty great.
Yeah, might do that one.
That's pretty amazing. It's revolutionary. It's not 3 hours. So, but yeah, so of course, thank you both for coming on. Appreciate it. And as always, everyone, thank you for listening and supporting us here at PWP. Leave a 4 or 5-star review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, use all the links and check out all the new reviews up on pwponderings.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
5 stars or nothing. Don't bother with 4.
I was going to say, who gets 4?